Revolution of common sense.
Revolution of common sense.
A revolution of common sense.
Truth was once common sense, but today, truth is uncommon. Explore biblical truths around faith, business, and politics with Peter Demas. Uncommon sense in current times.
Hey folks, welcome to Uncommon Sense in Current Times. I'm here today to talk about kind of a lot of the stuff that's going on in the Middle East. We keep seeing a lot of the things that are happening over there. In middle of March, U.S. started airstrikes over Houthi-controlled Yemen. We had more recent ones in the beginning of April. Now, like Iran has pulled its military personnel out of Yemen, which seems to be kind of strange. The Houthi attacks have crippled Red Sea shipping. The traffic has dropped. We were having to put in some of our ships in that area to help on that. Meanwhile, here, we have the signal gate, which is creating some confusion on even and having some impact over there as well. And so you have to ask the question, why do we care? I mean, Yemen is one of those countries that you probably didn't know. I mean, I still remember the first time I really paid attention to Yemen was actually a Friends episode where Chandler goes to Yemen to avoid breaking up with his girlfriend. So I mean, I had to go look it up to see exactly where it's located. Don't realize the impact on it. So that's why I've asked Mark Biltz to come and join us. He's the founder of Shaddai Ministries. It's a teaching ministry based in Washington State. It focuses on the Jewish roots of Christianity and the prophetic significance of the biblical calendar. He's known internationally for his groundbreaking work on the blood moons and its alignment with biblical feast. He's been a frequent guest on a lot of Christian TV networks, radio shows. He's authored several books. His research connects a lot of the current geopolitical events, especially in the Middle East, to biblical prophecy with a focus on Israel, Iran, and end times. So, Pastor Biltz, I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me on.
So I gotta ask, because again, I kind of alluded to this in the introduction, like, why should we care? Why do we care what's going on, particularly with Yemen and Iran? Israel, like, we can argue Israel pretty strong and pretty easy. And if you're a fan of this show, you know that we talk and we're very pro-Israel here. We talk a lot about that. But Yemen and Iran, like, who cares? Why does that even matter to the people that are listening to this?
Well, it matters a lot. From a biblical point of view, God said he would have war with Amalek in every generation. And last century, Hitler was the spirit of Amalek. I'm not sure if you're aware, but when you know what Hamas did on October 7th in chopping people's heads off, cutting people apart, the very Hebrew word Amalek means a people who chop off heads.
Wow.
That is what their actual name means. And so we see today, we are right in the middle of the war with Amalek that God is waging prophetically right now.
Okay. All right. So when you talk about that from a prophetic point of view, the events, because obviously, again, we look at it, there was no Iran at that time, it was Persia, all the geopolitical lines that seemed to occur in the Middle East just seemed almost to have been random. Like, it's like, I'm sure there was some rhyme or reason behind it, but it doesn't appear to be so, particularly, again, when we're looking at it from a biblical perspective. So how does that play? How does, like, the Iran significance of what's going on with Hamas, what's going on in Yemen, what's going on with Hezbollah? I mean, Iran has its fingers in all of this. So how's that playing into what's going on right now?
Well, Iran is kind of like the head of the octopus or the head of the snake. And of course, they've always used proxies to attack Israel. Now, in Saudi Arabia, they hate the Yemenites as far as the Houthis go. Way back in the 600s, 700s, when Muhammad was around, Islam got divided into two different sects. There were the Shiites who felt like his descendants should take over, and the Sunnis who felt like his military wing should take over. And they absolutely hate each other and want to destroy each other. And this is why Saudi Arabia has been attacking Yemen and Yemen attacking Saudi Arabia. But Yemen and Iran are very close, and their goal is to destroy Israel. This is why you cannot make peace with Hamas. You don't make peace with someone who storms into your house, threatens to kill your children, but if you give them a room in your house, the whole thing is just stupid.
I got to talk with years ago through a series of events that happened. I got to sit down and at a table and talk with Moshe Sharon, who was a Israeli negotiator, pretty high up with the Israeli government. He was part of the he negotiated with Arafat. One of the things that he said is a common Islamic or phrase is lying is the salt of words.
Exactly.
And I asked him, I'm like, how do you negotiate with someone that you know is lying? Like that's something that they want is better. And and what he said is the only thing that speaks in those areas has to be power.
Exactly.
So when we're looking at this, and then we watch Iran that kind of seems like it slightly distances itself from Hamas, and it's definitely like it's pulled out of Yemen. It almost seems like they like created a monster in Yemen that they can't control is what it almost feels like. But is there something else that's happening that we don't know and can't recognize?
Well, right now, as of this morning, I've read reports that Iran is jamming all kinds of computer systems because they feel like we are about to attack them. Here we have Netanyahu today in the White House, and they are in the process right now of jamming all electronics in that area. So I think they're pulling back because they fear an attack, but I believe we're going to see terrorist attacks right here on the United States soil. Because, of course, they're backed into a corner, and we're going to see it. We're going to see Islamic suicide bombers, I believe, here in the United States this year.
Okay. Now, when we're looking at this and we're seeing all this that's happening, again, why do you think what do you think is going on with Yemen? Because, again, with the Houthis, again, I have the impression that Iran created them, and now they're like a rebellious child. Like we believe in your cause, but we don't want to be controlled by you anymore. And that's why Iran's like, okay, fine, you want it, you can have it. Am I correct in that? Or is there another reason why Iran wants to pull out of that area?
Well, I think the one reason is because Trump is holding them accountable if the Houthis do any more attacking on the shipping lanes. And so Iran wants to distance themselves so they're not accountable for what the Houthis do, and the United States comes and attacks them. But I'm really hoping and believing that we will attack all of Iran's nuclear sites and destroy their economy and their oil production very soon.
All right, I definitely want to get to the nuclear piece here in a minute, but I want to kind of stick in this area because they're attacking in the Red Sea. So what is the significance of the Red Sea? Like, what is the commercial shipping in the Red Sea? Like, why is it that's a big deal especially for the United States?
Well, so much trade goes through there, economic trade, and they've been attacking every ship almost. I believe they're not attacking some of the Russian ships, but for the most part, they are just arbitrarily bombing ships. And that really raises the insurance rates. It raises the cost of shipping. The people are thinking they have to go around the Horn of Africa just to get their goods. But even right now, there is a huge turmoil with the tariffs going back and forth with President Trump and the cost of goods rising. And whether that's good or bad, that's not my area of expertise. But I do know costs are going through the roof, and people, Trump doesn't need to have the increasing insurance, shipping costs, and not allow free trade.
So a lot of people look at the Houthis and they say it's more of a grassroots movement. They want sovereignty for Yemen. Um, uh, what's your opinion on that? Where do you fall on that?
Well, I hope they don't, and I wish we would bomb the Houthis back to the Stone Age. I believe there are people in Yemen that probably do want peace. Again, these are terrorist organizations, just like in the Gaza Strip. I mean, they're like kidnappers. They're terrorists, and the people have to submit to them either joyfully or fearfully. But they're terrorists, and you just don't make peace with terrorists.
Okay, so we have terrorists again on all sides, surrounding it. Because again, you got it in Yemen near the Red Sea. We obviously have it south of, or kind of the southern part of Israel, there with Hamas. You have it on the northern side with Hezbollah. We see a lot of this terrorists that are all around. Now tie this in because the Middle East has always been shaky. I can't think of a time, when it really wasn't, except maybe like during the Ottoman Empire, or there's maybe a couple of times like that. There may have been some seasons where it hasn't been shaky, but for the most part, it has always been. Even when you look at it biblically, there's been times where it doesn't seem like it's ever going to get settled. Where do you see this fall within prophecy? Why is this just not a recurrence of what's always happened?
Well, it is both. It is a recurrence of what also happened. Many people don't realize history repeats itself in many different ways. But in the Bible, prophetically, God said he's going to make Jerusalem be a cup of trembling for all nations. And when you look at the United Nations, who represents all nations, there is something very prophetic that's coming up June 2nd. You have to mark your calendar for June 2nd of this year. This is when the United Nations is meeting in New York to finally solve the two-state solution. Okay? It so happens on the biblical calendar that is Sivan 6, the very day Moses ascended Mount Sinai and got the land grant, happens to be the very day that the UN is saying, no, you don't have it.
Okay. So they're there to you said solve the two-state solution. Obviously, they don't have authority to make Israel give up land. So let's say they get up there and they say they do it, and Israel says, I don't really care what you say. You can't really enforce it. You can't really do anything about it.
Right.
So then June 2nd seems to be irrelevant then at that point in time. Would I not be correct in that, or
Well,
something more on that?
it's just like there's two sides to everything. There's the good side and the bad side. It would be great, just like they thumbed their nose at the criminal court, if they thumbed their nose at the United Nations. My concern a little bit is if we go with a two-state solution, not with Hamas and Israel, but the United States and Israel. If we end up wanting to own the Gaza Strip, like Greenland or something, if we take control to solve the problem, I think Israel would love to sell the land to the United States and let it be our problem. But I don't mind if the United States administers it, but we cannot own it, or that will end up bringing all kinds of problems.
So historically, and yeah, any country, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but looking at it from a biblical perspective, biblical prophetic perspective, any country that seems to have gotten involved with Israel has been almost destroyed. You look at what Great Britain is the great example. I mean, as soon as they started, taking over this, they started losing everywhere. They were the sun doesn't set on Great Britain, and then all of a sudden now, they've lost everything all around, with it from there. Is that the reason why you're saying that you don't want the U.S. to own it?
Yes, exactly the reason why, because every nation that's come against Israel is gone. They're, out. They are no longer a world leader, or they don't even exist anymore. And when I see what our State Department did in World War II, turning back the St. Louis, the ship that had a bunch of Jews on it and they ended up dying in the Holocaust. Now, I think President Trump is far better than Kamala Harris could have ever been. But at the same time, I know he would love to get the Nobel Peace Prize and solving peace in the Middle East. And I just hope, I know almost all of his cabinet is opposing the two-state solution. So I hope he agrees with that, and he just doesn't try to solve the Middle East peace problem by taking over the Gaza Strip.
All right, so now we see where Israel has eliminated the ceasefire. The U.S. has backed them on this, and Israel is going back after Hamas.
Yes.
Where does this fall in all of this? Because Israel, you're looking at, this is coming up in June. Trump's kind of wanting to be peace in the Middle East, but he's supporting his friend and ally, rightfully so. The conservative part of Israel is saying, "Hey, we're going to destroy Hamas at all costs." The more progressive side of Israel saying, "Well, we just need to get our hostages back." It's not as simple as, hey, we're all on the same page. We just need to do this. It's a very complicated matter. And you listen to all sides and you're like, oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. But there's only one truth, which is God's truth. So how does this apply to this particular situation with this current event that we're looking at?
Well, United States, as you know, is very politically divided between the right and the left. Some people aren't aware it's the same thing in Israel. About 50% absolutely hate Netanyahu and want him to go to jail. And the other 50% absolutely love Netanyahu. And so there is a big divide, just like there is here. And so it's a nation divided is going to have a hard time sticking together. So it's going to be interesting to see the fallout over the next several months if they get the hostages back, if they die. I'm glad. The problem, and I talked to many Israelis. As a matter of fact, have you ever been to Israel?
I have, yes, loved it.
How many times?
I've only been one time. I took my family there. It was actually we were on Temple Mount the first day of Ramadan, right after
oh my goodness.
They found the Palestinian boys were burned alive. We left the day that rockets started coming out of Gaza, on a pretty regular basis.
What year was that?
Oh my goodness. This would have been probably 2015, 2016, somewhere right around that area. I don't remember the exact year of it, but
So was it on a tour or on your own?
It was on a tour. I went with our church group on it. I remember being one of the things that was shocking to me is that one morning we were in downtown Jerusalem, and our pastor went around and said, "Hey, I talked to your families, let them all know you're okay." And we're like, "Why?" And the news was reporting all these protests and riots and everything was happening in downtown. There was pictures. I looked it up on my phone. We were downtown. Like, we saw street dancers and we went shopping. I mean, I'm like, if that's rioting, then we got a lot to teach them, because that's not rioting. But we saw that, and we saw a lot of this chaos that was not real, that was being manufactured in the world around it. So that was one of the outside of it made the Bible come alive a lot more. That was one of the things that I picked up from a political perspective of what was happening in Israel and the lies that was being told about Israel.
Yeah. And it's more dangerous in Chicago than it is in Jerusalem. And most people don't realize that. But I go to Israel every year, sometimes twice a year. I'm going in May this year, and I'm going in October. And I've never had problems. Sure, there's been some little disruptions here and there, little things, but I've always felt safe there.
It's a wonderful place, but again, when we were there, there was, or at least before we went, there was a fear, and honestly, there was even discussion of what's going on with Iran at that time. There seems to be that constant worry, again, from those that are outside of it. But biblically speaking, you go to Israel and you don't have to, or especially in Jerusalem proper, you don't have to worry about Iran. Why is that? Why is that the case from a biblical perspective?
Well, I mean, when you look at, just so you know, my last book I wrote was called America at War, 2024 through 2026. Now, mind you, I wrote that book in 2023, and I'm the only one that has it in writing. I wrote in 2023 that Iran would attack Israel in April of 2024. I wrote that 6 months before it actually happened, and it blew people away. But I had biblical proof that it would happen, and I stated in my book. And I was talking to one of the Israeli intelligence military officers in the Knesset. He was blown away. And where did you get that from? And I said, well, that's out of your Bible, Daniel chapter 10. But I'm not sure they're going to have to worry about Iran too much because, as you know, they knocked all of their bombs out of the sky, and now they've totally destroyed all of their network as far as their radar to knocking down their planes. And I just hope Israel finishes the job and not listen to world opinion.
So Iran's building Iran's trying to get nuclear capabilities, trying to build nuclear bombs. They were at least slowed up a little bit during the first Trump term, only to be brought back. But we're also seeing that Iran's currency is struggling.
Yes.
They're having a lot more protests that are happening. I think a lot of people don't also realize that Iran was a very strong Western state before the revolution, before the Ayatollah took over. Some of the pictures of the 60s and 70s of girls in bikinis is just unreal.
Yeah.
So what is the Iranian people? What do they really want? And is that going to play a role in it? Can Israel use that to their advantage, or do the Iranian people hate Israel as well?
No, many of the Iranians absolutely love Israel, and that's what's so horrible about Israel's situation. That's why we mostly want them to attack their oil facilities, nuclear facilities. Many of them hate Iran. They're already protesting. And I really believe even Trump is encouraging them to uprise, as well as Netanyahu, to have a change of government. So I hope that happens.
So you look at a lot of things. Obviously, you're looking at it. You have to look at it geopolitically. You're going to have biases, just by the nature of being human. But you're also looking at it from a prophetic insight. How are you able to discern? Like, you said, hey, this is what's going to happen. I can look at it from Daniel chapter 10. How are you able to discern this is a true prophetic insight versus, hey, I need, this is just kind of what I kind of feel is going to happen based off of what I'm seeing, and letting like these outside world and outside influences influence kind of what you see and read from the Bible? How do you discern that?
Well, thank you for asking that, because that is the number one thing I teach on is the biblical calendar. The big problem with the church today, they're on the wrong calendar. In Genesis 1:14, God said he created both the sun and the moon, and he said, let them both determine his calendar. Well, our calendar is based only on the sun. The Islamic calendar is based only on the moon. And so we're not using the one God uses. This is why Easter is sometime a month before Passover. How do we celebrate the resurrection a month before he dies? It's because we're using the wrong calendar. And when you put things on the right calendar, and we have calendars available that intertwine the Gregorian with the biblical calendar so people can see things, there are biblical events that repeat. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of the 9th day of the month of Av, but there is a prophecy in the Old Testament that that's going to turn from being a fast day to a feast day. And if you claim to be a prophet and you don't know the biblical calendar, you'll never know when it's fulfilled. It was on let's say July, 9th of July. That would be roughly the 9th day of the month of Av. That's when the 10 spies brought the bad report. Because of that, that is the very day Nebuchadnezzar destroyed the temple, the very day the temple was destroyed in 70 AD, the very day all the Jews were kicked out of England in 1290, the very day all the Jews were kicked out of Spain in 1492, the very day World War I started, the very day Hitler's proclamation to kill the Jews came out. And so, but there's several biblical days that repeat over and over in history. And so all you have to do is know God's patterns, and then you know when things are going to happen.
All right. So I'm a skeptic or a new believer. I'm listening to you and I'm saying, okay, wait a second. This seems to be too simple. It seems to be too Nostradamus, Mayan calendar. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, this. So again, for someone from the outside who doesn't understand biblical prophecy, doesn't understand a lot of this from here, they're going to look at it and say, okay, either this guy is crazy and we should discount it, or they're going to say, hey, this guy's onto something. I need to be afraid. How would you address both of those people?
Well, what's amazing is most people don't read their Bible or really understand it.
It's true.
I ask Christians, are we supposed to know the times and seasons? And they all go, of course we're supposed to know the times and seasons. And so I say, well, what time is it? Oh, I don't know. What season is it? Oh, I don't know. And like in Ecclesiastes, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant, a time to pluck. But the church is planning at plucking time and plucking at planting time because they don't know the times or the seasons. And part of the problems is English. In Genesis 1:14, when God said he created the sun and the moon for seasons, we think winter, spring, summer, fall. But the very same Hebrew word there in Leviticus 23 is translated as the word feasts, like the feasts of the Lord. Well, that thinks of food. So the one Hebrew word moed is translated as winter, spring, summer, and fall, and another place is food, and they're both wrong. It means a divine appointment, like God has a calendar, and he says, on this day, on this time, I'm going to meet with you. But you only know that if you're on his calendar. One real quick example is God, his son was going to die. And the father says, I'm going to determine what day my son is going to die. I'm going to determine what time he's going to die. I'm even going to determine what songs will be sung at his funeral. So he had King David 1,000 years before write the funeral hymn that would be sung the very day, the very hour his son was going to die. And like in the Gospels, it says they sang a hymn and went over to the Mount of Olives. I know the words to this song. And so when you understand what was going on, the Bible all of a sudden becomes full color 3D. It's amazing.
All right. So then you get the other side of it, though, of people who are scared. They see this and it's like, oh, there's an earthquake. Oh, this is what's happening with Iran. This is what's going on.
Right.
End of time's coming. All this is birth pains. The Antichrist is coming.
Oh, I love it.
I mean, Gorbachev was the Antichrist. I remember one time because he had the mark of the beast. I heard, Pope Francis is the Antichrist, or he may be the false prophet. All this stuff. So, but you have that side of it as well. Which I think one diminishes, true biblical prophecy.
Oh, exactly.
But how do you address those people who are afraid?
Sure. Well, the first thing is 1 Thessalonians 5:1-4 says, you are not in darkness, that day will overtake you as a thief. Everyone says he comes as a thief. But that's only to the foolish virgins, to the evil servants, to the sleeping church, to the dead church, when you look at it. For me, I've almost died so many times I've lost count. I've had guns at my head twice, and they said they're going to kill me. I was almost eaten by lions in South Africa. Okay, I've been in major car accidents, plane accidents, you name it, medical malpractice. And I finally realized if it's not my time, it's not going to happen. And if it is my time, there's nothing I can do about it. And so for me, the Lord has numbered my days, and I just want to make them productive.
So you're saying eating gluten-free is not going to make your time longer than what's appointed?
Well, I'm diabetic. I have sugar-free. But I don't think people should be afraid at all. That I am not here to scare people. I am here to encourage people. A lot of this is simple math, knowing the times, and people don't know the calendar, so they don't know the math. That's why they're afraid. Just like a woman who's never been pregnant, about to have a baby. She knows a painful time is going to be coming, and she can't run away. But she doesn't mind the pain because she knows what's coming.
Right. And she's willing to do it again.
Exactly. Can you believe it?
Yeah, someone. If I get racked, I never want that ever happen again. And they say it's more painful. I don't know if I can believe that or not, because you choose the second time. I don't choose the second time.
Exactly.
Okay, so for people to want to learn more about it, they want to get kind of dig deeper into it. Obviously, your ministries is Shaddai Ministries. Where do they go? How can they watch your sermons? Where can they go, like, to find more about the website, understand this, so that they can kind of understand what's going on? Because you're right, they need to know the times and seasons. So where do they go for that?
Our name is Shaddai Ministries, but we make our website real short, esm.us. Of course, you can get all my books on Amazon. Just put my name in, Mark Biltz, not Blitz, Biltz, and they'll be able to find me on Amazon, even if they spell it wrong. But you can go to our home address, esm.us.
esm.us. All right. Well, I will definitely put that in the show notes. Mark, I thank you so much for being on. This has been a fascinating conversation. I definitely want to have you back as we kind of talk, because as we were saying beforehand, things are happening so fast that there's going to be a lot that's coming up. So any of these things that you also want to talk about, feel free to reach out and let us know, because we'd love to have you back on.
Well, thank you so much for having me on.